Welcome to the DNA Talks podcast, where we take on the mission of unlocking the code of your genetics. This season is all about you, upgrading your health, not just on the surface, but down to the root cause. Join us as your clinicians at the DNA company investigate your DNA and beyond. The intention of this podcast is to enhance your lifestyle by changing what is in your control. This does not substitute the medical advice given by your personal doctor, therapist, and other healthcare professionals.
Bonjour, Dr. Murray. How are you today?
Oh, Dr. Kostroman, I'm a little hostile. I'm going to be honest.
Oh, Moi aussi. It is going to be, I think. So Tracy isn't able to join us, audience. And so there will probably be a lack of fucks in this podcast. Nonetheless, I know Dr. Murray and I are both wild up. So you'll probably hear enough F-bombs to like get 5% of what you'd be expecting with Tracy here. So I think before we dive into audience, spoiler alert, we're going to be talking about how Trump is trying to erode children's rights and really create a platform there. But before we get to that, where you're going to hear all the F-bombs, why don't we talk about some more positive news? The discussion that's happening within the American government in regards to removing warning labels from hormonal replacement therapies. Dr. Betty, why don't you give the people a lay of the land of what's going on and why this is really an arguably overdue, but a beautiful shift in thoughts and appreciation of what's going on with women's health?
Yeah, so, this is really came from a push from the public called Unboxing Menopause. So this was not the FDA stepping out and going, we should rethink what we're doing for women. This is public outcry that forced it. And so essentially what happened 10 days ago is we had an FDA hearing about the removal of black box warning on estrogen, particularly vaginal estrogen products or topical localized estrogen products, and then a broader discussion about hormone replacement therapy for women for perimenopause and menopause and beyond, and had some of the most well-known figures in medicine right now really advocating for women's health. Dr. Vonda Wright, Dr. Kelly Casperson, Rubin, several other physicians that have really been out there sounding the alarm about, basically the greatest travesty of healthcare in the last several decades of our lifetime, for sure. A misuse of research and a misuse and a misrepresentation of data that has really ruined, 2 generations of women.
Yeah. So there were conversations, and I guess currently, if you were to be prescribed or receive any of the HRT or HRG adjacent products, there'd effectively be a warning on the box that says, "Hey, heads up, this could cause cancer." That's in brief what you see.
Yeah. Every product has a warning label on it that says this product could cause breast or cancer, stroke, and heart attack.
Yeah. Right. Okay. And that comes from a lot of the women's health study, correct? And yes. At the time, again, however flawed the study, that was the best science, and that fueled this label.
I wouldn't call it the best science.
At the time, though, wasn't it considered the best science, right? Just based on numbers. So even contextually in time.
No, I mean, actually, if we look at hormone replacement therapy, estrogen replacement therapy has been around since the late 40s.
Yeah.
And every single study up until the Women's Health Initiative and every study afterwards has shown estrogen replacement therapy did not lead to any increased risk of breast cancer mortality. Even that study did not show breast cancer death, right?
Interesting.
So the reality is it has never shown to increase the risk of breast cancer mortality. But yet we put a warning on there that makes it sound like you're going to die from breast cancer. And to be honest, many of the studies, almost, overwhelming preponderance of the studies showed that hormone replacement therapy protected. And we have to remember the Women's Health Initiative in their own study, the arm that was on Premarin, conjugated equine horse pea estrogen had a 23% reduced risk of breast cancer. They misaligned the data from a crappy, poorly designed study and then basically slapped a warning label on something like a vaginal estrogen that is so low dose, it barely does anything localized.
And for some reason, and I'm trying to scratch my brain as to where I thought I had this historical context. For some reason, I thought there was at least a few years, probably when these warnings were generated, where this was thought to be best science. So even back in the day when those studies were published, there were doctors and other scientists that were like, this goes against all the other literature. What then?
What made this unique is that it was the most expensive study that was ever undertaken, and the first time they'd ever bothered to really classify women separately and go, we're going to look at women's health, particularly heart attack and stroke risk, and the replacement using hormone replacement therapy as potential preventative. Now, but this is where the study got it wrong. A well-designed study would have said, great, we're going to start with women going through menopause, and we're going to follow them for 30 years, and we're going to have an arm that are healthy and an arm that aren't, and then we're going to have everything in between, and we're going to treat and not treat, and then look at the outcome. That's too expensive. So what they did is they picked people who already had heart disease, right? Like 3/4 of women. So like the numbers are crazy, but the reality is, because it was the most expensive and they were controlling for at least the prescriptive activities, that was considered the largest study of its scale, but it's not the only one. It's not not even ballpark to the only one.
Interesting. Okay. In my mind, and again, I acknowledge my lack of science history here. For some reason, I thought it was that pivotal and earth shattering, and it took a while to dissemble, but it was simply power of the dollar.
Yeah. It's just the most expensive.
Got it.
Which is why they keep propping it up, because it was the most expensive. We have to remember too, the Hannah NIH, that was the first female head. That was her stake in the ground. And, and they, it's a money thing. We've spent this much money. We have to keep pushing it forward.
So for better or worse, now it's again before the FDA, and there's incredible pushings to have these labels removed so that there's one fewer barriers towards women accessing this care.
100%. Yeah. 100%.
Yeah. Because it won't solve per se for the lack of education with many MDs. It won't solve for the cost. It may not even solve for the stigma, but it at least solves for when a woman gets a box, she's not freaking out in the same way. She's like, why didn't my doctor tell me that what he was prescribing was going to give me cancer?
Okay. Yeah. And what it basically boils down to is, I like to think of it as a layer of an onion. So on the outside of the onion, the unboxing and the removal of the black box warning on vaginal estrogen is the first wave. That's really what came out of the FDA. They talked about a lot of other things like testosterone and systemic estrogen therapy and its impact on osteoporosis and everything else. But, the first layer is to remove it from vaginal estrogen, which has no systemic effects and absolutely zero contraindications, even if you have active breast cancer and you're currently under treatment. That is clear. The next wave is to get it removed from systemic hormone replacement therapy. That's going to be a bigger lift because we have a lot of just misinformation and just posturing that's now happening. It's a lot of posturing. It is.
Yeah. I think I'm just laughing at how much, to your point, like even just this little education, how much money, politics, and power comes into deciding what is best for a woman, as opposed to kind of good scientific study and then a conversation between a woman and her doctor.
Oh, Viagra got fast tracked through the FDA in 6 months because a man couldn't get his dick up. I am sorry. That is 16% of men. We fast tracked it, and we have well over 15 different medications for erectile dysfunction. But we demonize women and we ruin their lives by taking away the opportunity to have that conversation through stigma and misogyny. Like, come on, right? Come on. It's just mind-boggling to me.
Yes, especially when laid out like that, and there's really nothing else to be said, to your point.
Yeah.
Other than historic and current day patriarchy and misogyny.
Yeah. Yeah. And, here's the other big challenge, because the mindset has always been misogynistically, paternally driven, that hormone replacement therapy is to get rid of hot flashes and night sweats. That's where most of the research is. So you have two camps now. If anybody's paying attention online, you have two camps. You have the camp that the functional medicine and science side, the leading edge of science where we are today, that are saying we need to remove the warning labels from systemic bioidentical forms of adequate, appropriate, age-appropriate forms for hormone replacement therapy for menopause. And then you have this subset that are in between that are arguing that the only science has shown that it's good for vasomotor, right? Because they only believe in placebo-controlled randomized trials, and that they ignore, retrospective causal comparative studies, observational studies, and all these other ones that are used routinely across the world to approve medications and change medication, recommendations and kind of the cookbook for medicine. So you have this other group that's also pushing this agenda that you shouldn't use it unless it's vasomotor, and that there's no other research showing that it's helpful for the brain, the heart, the bones, which is absolutely inaccurate. The patch, the estrogen patch, they looked at vaginal atrophy and bone mineral density as measures to see adequacy of dose, because you have to be able to look at something and say, is this dose the therapeutic dose or not? So I look at that and go, look, man, I don't know what those doctors' agendas are, but it's just, we need to move with the science and quit nitpicking these things and allow women the ability to make those choices for themselves.
Yeah. Because if history teaches us nothing, right? Sometimes even our best intentions don't always flesh out in the best way. And so that's really why it's important for autonomy of the individual and practitioner to a certain extent to be the guider and the maker of a lot of those decisions.
Yeah. And, I don't know. It's the thing that is always interesting to me is women are terrified of breast cancer. And I am not diminishing breast cancer by any stretch of the imagination. Yeah. However, 95% of all breast cancers, if you look at even conventional treatment, I'm not talking about all the things that we might do in our world, but conventional treatment, 95% survival rate. And a woman who had breast cancer is more likely to die from heart disease and a heart attack than she is from the breast cancer, even on a reoccurrence. But no one cares about that. But we know hormone replacement therapy can be protective to the heart and the vascular system, particularly started early. But yet we terrorize women so they don't do it. So their likelihood for heart attack and stroke are now higher, and they're more likely to die in a hospital having the heart attack or stroke than a man.
As well as feeding into fear creates a need for money to be funding things, and that fuels some of the charities which may not actually be charitable.
Oh God, no. We don't pink ribbon in this household. That's all I'm saying. I don't do anything to promote that marketing campaign. They're not looking for a cure. They're looking for money.
They're out of business.
Yeah, they're not.
They're out of business the moment there's a cure. Yeah, but I like that you're giving voice to at least that. While we would never wish cancer on anyone, to an extent, breast cancer is one of the more favorable cancers at this juncture in time from a cure perspective. Great, because I mean, there's people that are able to say complete cure, right? And that's not a common thing within the space of cancer to be able to say.
No. And we also have to recognize that mammals, right? So humans are mammals. If we look at the normal course of aging, mammals usually die from either cancer or heart disease, right? Because aging is the number one cause of all diseases, right? If we didn't age, we get older, we should look at it as a disease, because then we would actually fund research in aging. But that's the reality. It's the primary driver. So we all of our risks for cancer go up as we get older, right? It's just, it just is. And especially if you're in those last decades of life. But I think we have misaligned and terrorized women around that. And it's a modicum of control. It's another way to kind of keep you small and worried and scared and,
Yeah. Quiet and submissive. Heaven forbid there be thoughts.
Yeah. And there were some good conversations at the FDA too. So systemic hormones and the need for it, particularly Vonda Wright, talked pretty heavily about not only urinary, the urinary syndrome of menopause, which is, the other many leading causes for women to die. Accidental death is going to be sepsis from a urinary tract infection. And then, osteoporosis and the loss of mobility and independence. and then dying from an infection from the bone damage. So,
Yeah.
and vaginal estrogen does nothing for that. We have to have systemic estrogen to protect the bones. And there's a big case for that, because 50% of women who are 65 or older that fall and break a bone will not regain their mobility they had prior.
Yeah.
And of them, a significant portion will run the risk of dying in that first year from an infection or complications from that injury. Like those stats to me, like I look at those and like, okay, these are all cases for hormone replacement therapy, even with a modicum of risk. Like everything to me is a mathematical equation. It's a risk ratio, right? And I'd rather play out my risk.
Yeah. And I appreciate that's your perspective. And I think that's why it's important for the doctor to be able to bring these risk ratios to the person, to the woman, and then they pick what they decide. Because not all are going to be happy with the risk. And that's great. Don't take it. Right.
Yeah.
It's just you need to be given the information both sides and not presented in a way that makes you fearful of one of the options based on bias, not actual fact.
Oh, yeah, because we do it all the time. Like, I'll say, do you have any history of osteoporosis in your family? No. Okay, so it doesn't mean you wouldn't get it, but the likelihood now comes down. Do you have a lot of stroke and heart attack risk? Yes. Okay, so now you start weighing those risks over these other ones. Yeah. Same thing with other concerns, like dementia scares the crap out of me. So, you look back through your family. I'm adopted. I don't know this, but you look back through your family, if you have a lot of that, I would do things to prevent, right? And so I think everybody should look at their personal life, their labs, how they're living, and then assess their family scenario and what does it look like, maybe genetically based or at least risk profile genetically. And then compare that to everything else, not some random news article you read on Vanity Fair or, Oprah or whatever. Like, you got to look at it yourself, and your provider should be able to help you ferret out that information. If they aren't doing that, fire them. That's another one of those fire them moments.
Love it. Own it. That's a good moment.
Yeah.
I wonder if we can transition the conversation a little bit to, and this touches indirectly on kind of like all of the internet data and internet things that then fuel what is becoming America's doctor. America's doctor really being Dr. ChatGPT or Dr. Gemini or Dr. Insert whatever AI bot at this point. I don't want to be.
Whoever it is. No, it is scary.
Yeah, it's quite like. As someone that come from a technology background, I truly believe that eventually, not current state, but eventually, AI is going to outperform us in almost every category of medicine. And arguably, to a certain extent, it has been for a while, right? Technology, when it comes to capacity to replace a GP really being that person that triages you between different specialists or deals with common ailments, AI has been able to outperform GPs for, I think it's 15 or 20 years now. Like it's not a new technology, but I think what's different now, and what I want to talk about with you, Betty, is kind of people leveraging that before they're leveraging a human care provider, as if that technology has already been vetted to be better than a doctor.
Yeah. So I came from technology too. So I have a technology background like you. We are unicorns in this world, particularly in healthcare. And I'm building a company that uses AI agents and other things behind the scenes to help access and to help gather information that a human just can't do, right? Because that's the beauty of computing and everything else. It can gather so much more information and parse through it. I don't use, so just so everybody knows, I do not use any conventional available to the public AI component to make decisions. I use one that is designed and has been proven to outperform, that is exclusively used for medicine. And it is aligned with the medical journals, because the reality is when these large learning models go out and look online, because they're capturing everything that's ever been written that's electronically available, both good, bad, stupid, wrong, biased, and it's pumping it back to you. And it doesn't have the ability to have discernment to ask you questions to make it better or worse. And if you're not a really well-educated prompt engineer, which is not just asking it questions, you don't know what to ask or not ask to make sure that you're getting data that is validated and accurate. And some of the ones that are available online to everybody is terrible, right? We all know Maha and RFK got in trouble for presenting 1,000-page paper about what they were going to get done, and it had links that were from ChatGPT that were 100% fake. They were hallucinated. That's what it does. It thinks, well, I know you want to get some data, and if you ask for references, it'll just make them up. It'll make up entire articles, people, dates, and unless you're personally going back and not just clicking on the link to make sure it's real, but actually then reading the study, not the abstract, the entire study, you could be misrepresenting stuff. Yeah. Where I think it's helpful is you can ask it questions and it can help you ask questions, but it should never, ever be used diagnostically. It's just not there yet. It's not there even in the clinic, not there, but you can use it to help gather information and help you think it through.
Yeah. Yeah. Because where this has become topical in news is the instance of people in general, but in particular, I think there's been focus on adolescents leveraging AI for mental health support and kind of the controversy that sits around there, right? There's an element I want to acknowledge. Not all teens or people in general will have access to mental health care. And so I can appreciate there's an element of there's a space for that should be developed, future tense, as in it doesn't exist now. And we're seeing consequences of AI because it is largely designed to be supportive of people. It then inadvertently will encourage negative health outcomes, not because it's malicious or trying to hurt someone, just it hasn't been trained like a human has been to be discerning with what the conversation is actually leading to.
Yeah. Right? What's the context? Yeah. It's lacking context and emotion and emotional intelligence. Like it doesn't have any of those things. It's an algorithm. It's a plus or a minus, and that's all it's doing.
And this might be a bit of a dissonant opinion, but I think to an extent there's a black box problem of I'm not confident that matters, but I don't think AI yet has the pattern recognition or the experience yet. And what do I mean by this, right? Like, for example, across the world, all cultures, if I show you a face of someone smiling, you instinctively, there's several parts of your brain that automatically know that is happiness and that is joy. That is from when you are not literally zero, but like from infancy onwards, you just understand that. And that's a black box thing. Somehow within our evolution, it's been coded into our DNA and coded into our brain that smile means happy. And does it really matter however that is encoded into AI? I would say I don't think they necessarily need to understand emotion. They just need to understand the pattern that when I'm getting these prompts in this sort of wording or this sort of line of questioning, this is where it's going, and I should not be encouraging certain ends. Because I can think of at least two instances, one in Florida and one in, I think it was Belgium, where the AI, in trying to be supportive, unfortunately encouraged suicidal ideations, which resulted in 2 deaths.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Which is horrible. And no platform wants that. That's not to say these platforms that facilitated that were hoping for this. It's just that there weren't those protective measures. And I think that's especially important for children who we know don't yet have that critical thinking. They are more emotion and lizard brain than they are frontal cortex. And so this is important. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's so sad and awful, because, it's funny because they've done studies looking at AI. And if you let's say you ask your AI to do something, I want you to do something for me. It will react even if you say, I'm going to give you a bonus. I'm going to do this. It wants to succeed at what you're telling it to do, right? Like that has been kind of baked into some of it, but it hasn't necessarily learned that, if I say the world, as an example, the world just seems too hard. I don't know if I want to be here anymore. It doesn't have the understanding to say those are word patterns that now should raise your eyebrows and that we should ask some more critical questions. or say you need to get a parent or somebody to talk to about this. It's going to go, well, why wouldn't you want to live in the world anymore? You know what I mean? Like it's not
the world's pretty messed up.
it's not meant to figure out emotional
Yeah.
context.
Yeah.
And I have a friend that runs a company. He was CEO of a company that has a robot, right? So it's a robot that is designed to help teach children on the spectrum understanding emotional, things like emotional framework, right? Because what they found was that it was easier to teach smiling, this person is friendly, safe, or whatever, using a robot than having human to human to children, which is fascinating because it was, I don't completely understand why, but they found that they could teach the emotional awareness to bring the awareness to the child. Like, this is what this means when the robot did it, not a human did it. So you kind of look at it and you go, okay, why would that be? And, and we know developmentally, and that's not my specialty, but developmentally, children on the spectrum often don't make correlations between emotional states. Like you can ask and they'll say, I don't understand that emotion, right? Like they don't make that connection. But when you take it and make it abstract, because it's coming from a non-human, either robot or a non-human communication, it may make it easier because it seems logical. Right. And so I can understand the draw of wanting to talk to a chatbot or, just asking questions of a ChatGPT. We just got to find a way to like clamp that down a little bit.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be parental controls. There needs to be parental controls where like if a certain line of questioning happens, parents get notified.
Yeah. And further more diverse training of the AI too, because to your point, like it or not, most AIs are just skimming off of internet content, and we know how flavorful internet content can be, and how biases then are embedded into the AI. Again, not purposefully so, but more because it is reading incredible amounts of sexist or racist or whatever it is literature, and then it assumes that's just normal.
Well, even if you look at cultural context, right? So if you're looking at sub-Saharan Africa and entire populations that have very little Western influence, there is also very little Western influence data content about their experience. But yet we would let AI tell us what it is. Like AI doesn't know because it's not in the immediate lexicon available on the internet. The internet is still heavily biased.
Yeah. Or even, that curated learning. I think a lot of people heard of the example where image searches for a really long time could only identify white people because by and large, the people that were training these image searches were using pictures of themselves and their family. And statistically speaking, they were all white men. And so bots were great at identifying white men and occasionally white women, but not so much anyone else.
Of course not. Right. It's too nuanced. It's too nuanced.
Too nuanced.
That's a tragedy though, because I can understand the desire to use, because again, it's not confronting, right? Everybody's isolated. Like our children nowadays are I sound like an old fart, but they're the most anxious. Yeah, what are you doing on my lawn? Yeah, but they are the most anxious and depressed group of children we've ever had. Now, obviously, COVID drove a lot of that and a bunch of other things. But now they have at their fingertip, basically something that's judging them every 5 seconds, their phone. And then they have access to something that feels like it's a wizard. It's the Wizard of Oz, but you haven't seen behind the curtain yet, and it's carrying too much weight.
And I think too, I forget this fellow's name, but I was listening to a fellow who does a lot of thinking in this space, and in particular the intersection of the growing mind and social media and social technologies. And this person identified that social media as well as AI bots can serve an incredible purpose insofar as they can create community for people who otherwise don't have community. They can flag dire situations. There's several different places that AI can serve. And as a healthcare practitioner, when I think of people who are geographically isolated, they're in a medical desert, they can't access things, AI can be great for that. For those that are simply scared of humans, it can be a great stepping stone, not necessarily the final stone, but a great stepping stone. And for those that have traumatic, like, we have to acknowledge that not every person's journey through the medical system is going to be one where they have positive associations. Myself as a naturopath, I see a lot of people who refuse to see MDs because they had an isolated, horrible experience with an MD and they're not open to that. So I can really see where AI fits in there, but I also see the need that it hasn't been formally trained. And until we get to that point where we have AI outperforming people screeners, it's got to come with so many different mechanisms to protect the vulnerable users.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it is probably the one piece of technology that will change our lives more than anything else. I mean, really, industrialization, Bronze Age, doesn't matter. It really probably will, but it has so much need for control and ethics around it, like real clear ethical boundaries. And we just don't have them yet. And right now, sitting in the United States, I would say we're seriously lacking in all of those concerns. And I don't, and I'm afraid for what will happen because it is outpacing our intelligence as a human population at a level we have no earthly idea how to understand.
No. You think about how different the world is. How old is AI in at least the public sphere? It's what, 4 years old?
Not even. Sphere. It's like 2 in the public sphere. When did OpenAI came out in 2023? So mid 2023. So it's only really been available. Okay. Now, obviously AI technology has been around for a long time, but accessible to the average person 2023. So it's so new. And again, it's growing so rapidly and changing so rapidly that if anybody says they have control of it, they're lying.
Yeah.
There's no way. You can't even come close. Like it can't even control itself, right? More or less.
Yeah. And that's crazy. It's been 2.5 years, let's say. I thought it was 4. But think about, just all the listeners, think about how much you use AI right now in your day-to-day, in your job, in all the things. It's in a year from now, even, I don't think we'll recognize the world.
No, I mean, the reality is if you look at it as a business person standpoint, if you don't embrace AI, you won't be here. Mm-hmm. That is a full stop. Unless you do something that requires absolutely zero technology, but I would even say billing somebody for lawn service is going to require AI. Like the reality is you have to get with the program or otherwise you will get left behind.
Yeah.
You just won't be able to compete.
Yeah. Which is why identifying how AI potentially can exploit, how I will hope not intentfully, but however AI can exploit vulnerable populations becomes an important conversation.
100%.
And speaking of which, let us populate our language with a lot of what the fucks and talk about what is going on in Washington when it comes to protecting children.
Oh, what the fuck? Like, why can't we protect children? Dear Lord. Passing state laws that are allowing children to get married again, that's awesome. Like, and I mean that in a very sarcastic way. Like, there is nowhere on the planet that a 14-year-old girl should be able to get married. No. Period, full stop. You are a pedophile. You are a scumbag. You do not deserve to breathe. I am sorry. That is my opinion. But we know you're a pedophile. That's a child.
Yeah. Or even and I love the justification of what happens if she's 14 and he's 15 and they're the same age? Think about how much you change over your teenage years. Yeah. I don't know anyone who's I met someone at 14 and at 80, I'm still happy.
No. But the child marriage laws that they're trying to pass in some of the states in the United States are scary. But what we're talking about here is a little different. It's the requirement to disclose knowledge of children being abused, regardless of type of abuse.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So audience, for context, within different segments of society, doctors included, there is something called mandatory reporting. So if I have a patient come to me and this person says, I am harming a child, or it's a child that says someone is harming me, I have a legal requirement that is criminally, as well as it threatens my life. If I don't report it, criminal charges and my license is stripped. It's a very important thing because we are a catchment for vulnerable populations, and our job in part is to protect them. So if someone vulnerable comes to me and says that. Now, up until recently, this is all religious institutions. So this will span from Catholics to Protestants to Muslims to Jews to Wiccans to all the flavors in between. If you are a religious figure, there is this idea that if a child reported to you they were being harmed, you were part of that mandatory reporting category. You had to engage someone that could then protect that child, investigate and protect that child, right? And now, delightfully, this is being challenged in court. So back in May 2025, Washington, there was a bill proposed that effectively said, if anyone goes to a religious figure and says, I am harming a child, that religious figure must report it. The Catholic Church, in turn, came back and said, First Amendment rights, this is our religion. If someone in the sanctity of a confessional booth says, I am harming a child, we shouldn't have to report it because that's between that person and God, right? And the Trump administration is supporting that First Amendment right of the church to not report if a child is being harmed.
Which is just disgusting to me. So you get into the little telephone booth and you have your confession and you can confess to everything: murder, rape, child molestation, and you are absolved of that responsibility. And the person that heard it, just zip, throw away the key, don't worry about it. I can't even imagine being the person in the confessional. Like, how do you go home and sleep at night as part of the clergy when you heard that? That should be more concerning to you than anything else. Who are you depending your religious doctrine on when they can hear that and just go, that's between them and God. Never mind, they're going home later on. Like that should be required. The children don't have the ability to defend themselves. They are too young. They are not strong enough. They do not have legal rights. And if we don't have a safety net for them, they are just victims. And to me, I don't care what happened in your confessional. If you're up to those kind of things, you probably should keep it to yourself because you deserve to be in jail. Like I don't care what your religion are. You're a sick human being, and the fact that it's so here's where it's even more crazy. So you go into a confessional and you say it and it's quite all right, but you let it drop out in the hallway while you're having a cookie after church. Then they bust your ass for it. How is that different?
Yeah.
But I also can't make fun of Trump because he's going to sue me for libel. But that's my First Amendment right. Fuck you, Trump. You know what I mean? Let's look at it in the larger context. Like, people are getting sued and all this other stuff for all these other things, but yet in a confessional, you can say whatever you want. You could have committed any crime, and it is okay. And then as soon as you go out, it's different.
It's such a slippery slope of setting. Like, I think the thing that concerns me most about Trump and the administration, what they've been doing, is this very slow, quiet. I don't know if I can apply methodical to anything they do, but this very slow and insidious reduction of women and children's rights. We're watching women's rights be stripped away. We're now seeing precedent being set for children's rights between child marriage and this idea that if someone reports to clergy that they're harming a child, it's not a reportable offense.
Yeah. Or they have knowledge of harming a child, anything like that. Yeah. Because what's happening there is chaos, right? So total chaos. But behind the scenes, Project 2025 is slowly eroding equality laws and protection laws for the most vulnerable people on the planet. And I don't care what side of the aisle you're on, that is not okay. That's not politics. That is making people slaves and property.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is creating indentured servitude within poor classes, in particular women and children. You're creating this cattle. It's a horrible way to refer to humans, but that's kind of the infrastructure that they're setting up. Yeah. And it is profoundly concerning, because we know once people kind of get into lower socioeconomic demographics, the horrible outcomes when it comes to health and just even inability to speak up for self, not because you can't, but because you are so overwhelmed with simply surviving.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I mean, yeah. I mean, it's just, yeah, it's a mess. I mean, you can look at the Epstein files and, okay, of all the people that were involved in human trafficking of minor, mostly women, young girls, let me not even say women, young baby girls,
children. Let's say children. Appropriate phrasing, children.
Children, trafficking children. The only one who's actually doing time is a woman. When we know there was an extraordinary amount.
Fuck.
Yeah,
what the fuck?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah.
And I think
property. Their property.
And again, I say this as a Canadian. I think the interesting thing watching, excuse the air quotes, but like watching this is the first issue outside of maybe the shooting of that health and the insurance CEO that I have seen kind of across the aisle unite people. I've actually never seen the mega crowds, the conservative crowds, and the Democratic and the left-leaning crowds unite over an issue. And my hope is this becomes a unification point, because I would hope and offer that children is this one point that we can all agree on. Unfortunately, it seems we can't agree if we should protect women or not. But I think by and large, we can agree that we should be protecting children.
I don't have children, but I cannot fathom being a parent and looking at this and going, I don't know, I don't think anything happened. Yeah, something happened. Because the simple fact is, he doth protest too much. And the real fact is, if there was nothing to hide, you would put the files out there. There's too much to hide. Like you promised. And you said earlier, you said in 2016, and you also said while you were, stumping for your presidency, of course you would have released it. You have nothing to hide. You have nothing to hide. Go ahead and release it. But you are equally at fault. You're equally a problem. And you were probably all over those files, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Otherwise, you would have released them a long time ago, right? Because you should have released them to prove your innocence, but we can't, because that's not true, because that's why you won't release them.
Yeah, because you can't release redacted files that have every fifth line squeegeed out.
When there's nothing, when it's one big blackout, it's all blacked out. Like, yeah, sorry,
mystery friend did this.
Yeah, anywhere else in the world that would never play out, but somehow or another,
yeah, it's just this. To your point, is this profound hypocrisy of the church, the clergy. It's Catholic Church. It's the Catholic Church that's trying to hide under First Amendment for their own reasons, right? We all know what the Catholic Church does to little children and how they protect their own. So it's fascinating to me that the administration is like, cool, yes, let's support the Catholic Church, this known pedophilic organization, right? Let's protect them, but in the same turn, let's censor. Let's force this conversation of, if you speak bad of me, we will sue. I say it out loud and I'm like, this can't be true.
No, it's like living in a twilight zone every day. You wake up and you're like, what crazy stuff could be happening today that defy logic and just are contradictory and amazing. Just what?
And the rate at which it's happening.
Yeah, don't get in the public eye if you don't have thick skin. If you're so weak and weasel that you can't handle somebody saying something negative about you, don't do it. Don't do it.
Yeah. Well, I don't know per se. I don't know 47. I don't care to. So I won't speculate as to how thick his skin and his ego is. I think what I will offer, though, we can have I think more what I offer is it's really just setting this dictatorial stage. Independent of his ego, it's really just setting the stage of, I'm in charge and you do what I say.
No, yeah.
Is ego involved? Yeah. Sure, probably. But independent of that, the net result is going to be a dictatorial state.
Yeah, no. He's working towards authoritarianism. He doesn't, no, that's the plan. That's the plan. And behind the scenes, Project 2025 is playing out and eroding, vulnerable people, women and people of color and everybody else opportunity, so that's the reality, they just create chaos in the front. So you can't tell what's going on behind the scenes. Do you know that they also removed any liability from pesticide and insecticide companies from damage for non-Hodgkin lymphoma? It's also one of the things in the bill. Paraquat, we're going to bring paraquat back out.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we can have frogs that change sex in the water. Yeah, not have sex, but change from male to female. Awesome. That's awesome.
Which again, the hypocrisy of under Kennedy Jr., him being like, let's get rid of food dyes because they are problematic. I don't want to take that away. That's totally happy for that. But then in the same breath, this administration to then be like, cool, bring that back.
Yeah, we'll bring back previously removed pesticides and herbicides that have shown to be damaging to human life, endocrine disrupting, the whole 9 yards. Oh, and we'll take away liability and culpability of the manufacturer for any disease state it causes, right? So the people that are worried about vaccine, you're worried about vaccine injury and culpability of vaccines, but you're not paying attention to what's being sprayed on our food and what's going to end up in our waterways, which is by far more profound than whatever might be in a vaccine, because you can't get that out of the environment.
No.
It'll perpetuate for forever.
Yeah, forever. Like I had the concept of forever chemicals just disturbs me. I sat down with an environmental engineer the other day and they were trying to explain just different contamination points and things that they do to try and resolve that and the different categories and just this conversation of all these forever chemicals. And like, I hear it in the media as this one big blanket, and you speak with an environmental engineer who's responsible for going on site and cleaning this stuff up and the different categories they have. Like it's so much, I think it's one thing, it's such a difficult thing within science media to communicate how intricate and nuanced this is. It's not just one bucket that we can solve kind of with one approach. Every category has a markedly different approach, and every category will have an engineer that is like, we don't know how we're going to fix this.
Yeah. Because everybody thinks, it's microplastics and PFAS. So I'm like, well, those are just two of about a billion different, tens of thousands of different things that we have to figure out how to do something about,
Yeah, because the convenient soundbite is like, I remember when BPA was popular and people not liking it, right? It kind of came out within this news media. And so companies were like, cool, we use BPB. That's fine. Which wasn't true. It's just that it didn't have the same news media as BPA did. And so they quite literally, they didn't eventually go down the alphabet. But I was like, are you just going to go down the alphabet and tell us like the next plastic is fine? That's just because there's no research on it, right? It's
it's still plasticized. There's still endocrine disrupting, all that. It's just, it's smoke and mirrors, but you can't have it both ways. You can't protect the people from food dye and then not look at what's happening to the environment, right? Yeah. You can't. Our food supply will not be safe.
But it's a platform of hypocrisy, right? We just established First Amendment rights for the church, but not for the news media,
Yeah, it's like, it's selective First Amendment rights. Like, I'm sorry, it's across the board, right? Yeah. First Amendment rights, it's across the board. Everybody gets the opportunity, not just white guys.
Yeah, well, and I would say affluent white guys, right? Because if you really, if you read into some of what Project 2025 does and kind of this return to a traditional nuclear marriage, like we don't have the economy, like let's pretend they succeed in that, right? And we go back to this nuclear family. We don't have the economy and the weight and the burden, the mental stress that would then be placed on men. Like none of this is good for them.
No, they just don't know.
Yeah. Like you being in charge of a castle that you can't sustain is not you being in charge of a castle. That is you subservient to a system. Like none of this is helpful to white men except for that like top percent that have stupid amounts of money that then control the hypocrisy that goes through the court systems.
Yeah. I mean, the reality is, if all of a sudden there's only a one income earner family, right? So everybody think about how much you make between the two of you. Son, you need to go figure out how to double your income. Yeah. Right? Double your income, and do it and do that all That world will never come back. Just because
No.
women couldn't leave the marriage didn't mean they were happy. They just couldn't leave.
It breaks my heart because I think there's so much pushing for it from certain segments of the population without awareness of the consequences to them. And I think we see that within healthcare spaces. We see this with it just, oh, mon Dieu. I don't pretend to know
Yeah.
everything, but
Yeah. I mean, to each his own. Like, if you want to have a nuclear family like that, cool. Have that agreement among you and your spouse or partner or whoever that is, and y'all figure it out. But as a population, we have attained and created an economic environment and socioeconomic expectation that can never, ever possibly sustain that. Just the same as bringing manufacturing back to the United States. So if you want a $13,000 iPhone because we manufactured it in the United States, feel free. But the reality is, the reason why this stuff isn't made here is we don't have the capacity or the ability to do it or the labor. And the reality is, it's robotic. There will never be manufacturing in the United States like it was before, ever, unless we get blasted back to the Bronze Age, and most of us will be dead at that point. It's never coming back. If you want to work in a factory, you better learn a new job. We don't have those kind of jobs anymore. That's just the way this stuff works. And that idea that manufacturing is going to come back here, it's all being roboticized. Even in China, even in India and other places. It's like, it's just not that anymore.
Which is arguably great for children, but not so much for people that are hoping for manufacturing jobs.
Yeah. And if you want, $450 a pair of jeans, that's what's going to happen if you cut off trade and everything else to China, and then you move things to the United States. Everything's going to go through the roof cost-wise. It's just, that's the way it works. And
so it's going to have to be a double income house.
Yeah, I can't imagine not having a double income. Yeah.
No, it's we've also like mentally acclimated to that, right? The idea of going down to a single income is, I would say, like, if you're willing to strip away most niceties, you could probably do it, but most people aren't willing to strip away those niceties.
Yeah. No, I'm not. I don't want to
lower my
quality of life. Like, why would I want to lower my quality of life? That's of zero interest, particularly at this point in my life. Like, I worked hard enough to get here. I'm gonna enjoy myself while I'm at it. I don't know. I just look at it and go, what are we thinking? And I think the problem is most people aren't thinking, reacting, and we're in sound vacuums. We're in our own little vacuum of information, and so you have to kind of step out of that to kind of see what's really happening.
And the patience and the openness that is required for that, right? That human interaction in order to engage with someone of the opposite side of the aisle and hear out their ideas is not easy, and it's difficult, right? Because I think within our own vacuums we become so sensitized to it, and we have so many assumptions about the other side that having those conversations becomes really difficult, which is again dangerous. It's interesting how the sound vacuums are all like part of their polarization is atrophying our ability to have conversation with people we don't agree with.
Yeah. I actually enjoy that. I'm like, help me understand your viewpoint. Like, I'm strongly opinionated, but I change my opinion all the time based on new data. If I've got new data, I'm like, okay, that's new. I didn't know that. I got to change what I think, because now the new data supports a different mindset, but that's not what most people do.
No. And that speaks to someone whose religion is science, right? And I don't mean that in the way you were raised.
It is. I can't help but be scientific about things. Like, I can't, and I always check my bias. I'm like, okay, is this my bias playing out, or am I actually looking at this legitimately?
Yeah. Which is, I think, advocacy for scientists being in spaces where decisions can be made, because they can be a voice of dissent by training, right? It's their job to be devil's advocate. Yeah.
They better be, or they're no longer doing their role, They need to be the voice of dissent. If anything, just to ask the question so it gets said.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're dovetailing back, right, to the idea of AI, right? Because you need to have that challenge, and science AI should be challenging, right?
I agree completely.
I don't know if we fulfilled our quotas of fucks for this conversation.
I don't know. Yeah,
We
I at least
tried.
said, well, I did say fuck Trump, so I went all out. Went all out. I'll probably have a libel, something or other showing up at my doorstep because I made him feel bad about himself or something. But
Yeah,
I don't think I carry that much weight.
$16 million. $16 million is the bill that might be coming to you.
Awesome. All
right.
I was, I only have 15,000 followers on Instagram. So if that's what, wow. Each one of y'all.
Y'all need to pony up.
Pony up. No, I'm kidding.
No, it's okay. It's you'll probably get tossed in jail before they'll sue you, right?
No, I'm sure that's true.
Yeah.
Just
you are asking. A woman. I don't know if they'd even bother suing you. They're just going to toss you in jail.
No, that's right. That's right.
You can go beside Maxwell, right? Cellmates.
Yeah. Yeah, they're trying to get her a pardon also. So there you go.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting the information she comes out with.
She's already proven to not be reliable. Like she's saying now that she has content that she's willing to share, but she didn't when she was in court under threat of perjury. So at this point, like, what? So
she's had lots of opportunity.
Perjury. Yeah, like she's just seizing an opportunity and hoping she can leverage her friendship with Trump. Their deep 20 or more year friendship to figure out how to get out of jail. Yeah. There's too many pictures. Y'all have known each other for a long time, and you are not acquaintances.
Yeah,
not acquaintances.
Family, friends, right? Because it sounds like her relationship with the First Lady as well is quite deep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Might have been a working relationship. Who knows?
Very silent. What the fuck?
Like, what? Yeah. No. Yeah.
Oh, mon Dieu. Okay. Well, Dr. Murray, Betty, as always, it is delightful. Yeah. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for getting outraged with me and being like,
I am outraged.
Let's protect pedophilia. Why not?
Yeah, I am outraged. Yeah, I can't do that. Kids and ailing senior citizens, that's like a massive trigger for me. They can't defend themselves.
Right? The vulnerable. It's the vulnerable. I don't think we're asking for anything crazy and out there that truly threatens anyone's freedom by asking that we can
if that's
create
your
protection.
Freedom, you're an evil person. Full stop.
I think what's interesting with like the volume of news and the whiplash of news is the incredible apathy and exhaustion it can cultivate. So I hope when I see you next month, we rest ourselves so that we can come back screaming all anew.
Yeah, I just need a good night's sleep. That's all.
Oh, I know. I just know it's going to be a marathon. And so I'm going to be screaming what the fuck with you the entire way.
This is going to be going on for a while. Yeah, it's not over.
Yeah. No, and I think that's the important part, right? Like audience before this, we were discussing like, what are we going to talk about? We're always talking about women's rights, and that's because it's going to be a marathon and it's that slow atrophy. And so it's that moment to highlight what is happening to women and children and the implications to larger society. That's important because women and children are the vulnerable, unfortunately.
Yeah. Women don't fear other women. And we also don't fear bears.
Yeah. Oh, we don't fear bears. That's true.
By the way,
I learned a really interesting thing, and I want to leave us with this because I think women can be a really interesting metric of safety. Mm-hmm. There was a park, and I'm forgetting the park. It was a park in New York City, and there'd been a lot of it was in a very dangerous region, and there'd been a lot of investment to try and make this park safe because effectively this park had been taken over by various drug dealers and just it was a very unsafe place. So people, women and children, avoided it, and there'd been a lot of money invested in, okay, do we put more security there? Do we put cameras there? They went through the very traditional things. And I forget who it was or how this came into the idea of conception. But at one point in time, someone stood up and said, well, how do we, instead of thinking of how do we keep these people out, why don't we start thinking about how do we encourage community in? Can we look at the idea of community displacing the ugly within this park? And so they took up an initiative with women because there had been a few studies that really looked at when women see other women in public, they're like, oh, this area must be safe because if this woman is here, then it's safe for me to be here, right? It's this unspoken rule between women of I'm here, I'm safe, I would warn you, right? It's women, like it's with the new app. I forget what the app is called. I think it's called T, where women will warn other women about men because this is one of our safety mechanisms, right? We're creating this app so that we can try and
again, we have to do this because we're safer with a bear. We need an app and we need nail polish that shows you put a date rape drug in our drink. Like, come on. Like, okay, here's the problem.
Yeah. So it's this idea that when women see other women, they assume safety. Yeah. And so this then project put effort into how do we attract women into this space? Can we leverage the goodness, the collective goodness, the community within women to displace? And over time, and I forget if it was a year or two, but over time, they were able to displace the drug dealers and this space being effectively like a public crackdown. Mm-hmm. And it became a space where there were women and children and community, and the community followed the women. And so it's this idea. And so maybe that's a happy thought we leave with, because I struggle to be angry all the time, nor do I want to be angry all the time. Yeah. This idea that inviting good in to displace the crazy that is going on is going to become really important. So I think conversations like this, where we highlight the crazy that's going on, but then inject like the positive with the FDA, becomes all the more important.
Yeah. Well, actually, there was Freakonomics had it in their book, but I can't remember what. There was a project. I can't remember if it was Caprini Green or one of the other ones. And there was a lot of violence, a lot of drug dealing, a lot of other things. And the grandmothers in the building got together and put a crackdown. They're basically like, you're not doing that in this, because you don't mess with people's moms and grandmoms, right? But they completely changed the environment by just being present and so women can change a lot because we care about community first.
Yeah. And we're brave and bold, right? Like for better and worse, it takes a lot of bravery to be a woman in this world, right? It shouldn't have to, but it does. And so that can just be directed within community, and you're welcome.
Yes, absolutely.
You're welcome.
You're welcome. Yes. That's so true. So
it is. No, it is. It is. Yeah. Oh. Okay, Medell. Thank you so very much.
So great.
It has been. Yeah, we'll get Tracy back next round so that we can have a lot more facts for the audience, in case you're missing those.
Yeah, in case you're you're having withdrawal symptoms.
Yeah. All right, Medell, thank you so very much. It was delightful. Until next month, I hope you take care of yourself so we can scream next time.
Yes. Au revoir.
Au revoir.